Hey everybody, I am back again. I am actually here with a new series that I'm hoping to make a permanent addition to this channel in my life called Abbey Makes. I honestly got really excited about sewing. I had spring break last week and it was really crappy here in Chicago, so I decided I wanted to sew and just flex my creative muscles because it's really fun, and honestly, I just was looking for something to do. So I started sewing and I was like, this is freaking awesome. And I got a reignited passion for it. So I decided to sew a quilt coat. I know, so exciting, as you can tell by the title of this video. And if you follow me on Instagram, if you don't, whatabbeywore, go give me a follow. I posted it on there. So if you want to go see it, don't go see it, wait till the end of the video, but follow me on Instagram. I just love sewing, so it is something that I've always wanted to do. I've honestly only done one sewing project prior to this in my whole life. Well, I guess two. I made like a Dancing with the Stars outfit with my grandma when I was like 8, out of like neoprene. It was honestly incredible. I probably still have it somewhere. But we made that, my sister and I made versions of that when we were like little kids. And then I made a Halloween costume last year. I was the Morton Salt girl. I'll put a little picture here. That took me like 2 months and it turned out like low-key crappy, but it was my first ever sewing project, so I had no idea really what I was doing. But the second sewing project is the quilt coat, which was honestly like a mammoth task. I don't know like what inspired me to do that and make that my second sewing project, but honestly it turned out really surprisingly good. People at work the other day, I work at Madewell if you don't know, customers were like, where'd you get your coat? And I told them that I made it, and it was just, they were like, what? No freaking way, you should sell them. So it was just fun. It's just like a point of pride. My grandma's grandparents were both a tailor and a seamstress, so it definitely runs in my blood. And then my grandma's the one who gave me my wonderful sewing machine. So the things that I used, obviously the vintage quilt, it is something that my mom picked up at an estate sale probably like 8 years ago. We used it to tug around furniture. It had cement on it. It was not getting its full potential. It was not living its life like it should. So I decided to make it into a quilt coat because it's freaking beautiful and it deserved another life. The pattern that I actually used was a free pattern from fabricstore.com. It was a printable PDF pattern, so all I had to do was print it out, tape it together, cut out the pieces, and that was my pattern. So I will definitely put in the link below their website. They also sell beautiful linen fabric, and honestly, it was such a gem to have found. I also made a muslin version prior to actually cutting out the fabric from the quilt. So I was worried about making the size correct. I figured if I accidentally made it too small, I didn't mention I used the size 8-10, but if I had made it too small, I would have been totally SOL with the fabric, and I didn't want to waste the quilt like that. So I made a muslin version so that I also like kind of learned how to do everything prior to actually working on the quilt, which was definitely different as muslin is like the thinnest material and then the quilt was like thick as heck. So it was definitely different, but it really did give me a good outlook into kind of how to complete the project. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this Abbey Makes content. I know it's a little different from my thrifting stuff, but this is something that I am really passionate about and I definitely want to incorporate into this channel. So definitely, like I said, make sure to like it. If you want to see more, subscribe to my channel with the little red button down below for more content. And yeah, make sure you give me a comment and tell me what you want to see me make next. I do have a couple things figured out for the future. I ordered some beautiful linen to make a jumpsuit. I have some vintage fabric to make some tops. And yeah, I just hope you enjoy this video. Let's get on into it. Alrighty, so this is the stuff that I used to make my quilt coat. You definitely don't need all of it, but it does help to have a few extra little things to aid you, as I have learned. So basics, just some fabric scissors, some pinking shears because I don't have a serger, so this makes sure that those edges don't come unraveled. I have a little pair of baby scissors because they are not only adorable, but also they're super helpful when you are getting all those little threads at the end. A measuring tape, obviously. seam ripper because I messed up a couple times. Your thread, obviously this is an all-purpose, so it worked pretty well for my quilt, and I already had it, which was really nice. And then obviously some pins, and this is my great grandma's pin cushion that she made back a long freaking time ago. Obviously you'll still need your pattern, and then you can see I've poked through it a couple times, but you'll want to make sure that you've got your grain line and your button markings. I haven't put buttons on mine, but I might later. And then this is something that definitely is not like necessary, but is super helpful. These are some O weights. So this is helpful when you're pinning your fabric down and cutting it, that you don't have to use pins so it doesn't bunch up. It just makes for a whole better surface. But my grandma gave me those, which has been super helpful. I've used those for the 2 sewing projects that I've done so far. And then fabric chalk, obviously beautiful, beautiful, beautiful quilt. And then my secret weapon is this guy. I'll put a, hello, you can see me. I'll put a little link to it. It is just a little magnetic hem straightener. You just pop it onto your sewing machine and it makes sure that your hems are straight. You can line it up with whatever 5/8 hem, 2/3, whatever your hem needs to be. You can line it up. I think it was literally $2 on Amazon, maybe $3, but it has been super helpful. It was super helpful until you like can't use it, and then you just gotta kind of trust yourself. But yeah, it is super awesome. These are all the things that I used. Obviously also my sewing machine. I did this, I relied on that guy. But yeah, so these are the things that I used. Let's get on into it. Okay, here is the vintage quilt. My mom got it at an estate sale, like I don't even know how long ago. This is not doing it justice at all, as you can tell by like my blue hand. It's like such a warm, beautiful gold yellow. I don't know, this lighting makes me sad because you can't see how beautiful it is. But it has these beautiful, intricate little embroidery things all over it. I just think it's beautiful. And that's the front side, and the back side is, if I can get it because it's so huge, it's just this plain white, which honestly I'm totally fine with because it has this really cool detailing on it. But yeah, this is the quilt. I freshly washed it. I freshly dried it to make sure that it's not going to shrink when I'm done sewing it. So yeah, I'm going to iron it and then get a cutting. Hello, we are on the ground now. I am on the ground because it wouldn't fit on my table like it did 2 days ago with the muslin, because I think this is a king-sized blanket. That's what my mom told me. She thinks she remembers seeing it on a king-sized bed at the estate sale that she got it from. But yeah, I've ironed the best I could. I'm just gonna cut, pin, cut, get it done. This might be a little bit harder than I had originally thought, just because this is some thick freaking material. But this is a beautiful quilt, so I hope I don't f it up. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna get on into it. You'll see me montage cutting now. And this was the point that she realized that she had the back and collar pieces upside down on the pattern of the fabric. And this was the moment that she realized that she had to call her expert sewing grandma for help. Hello!
Hi.
What's going on? I have a question for you, and it has to do with FaceTiming. Well, not with FaceTiming, but I need you to see this. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing a sewing project.
I took it that way.
clearly Grandma told me it was a-okay that I flipped those pattern pieces upside down, and it actually worked out just fine in the end. Thanks, Grandma. Also, if you're an expert sewer and I'm cutting things wrong, please don't come for me in the comments. Like I said, this is my second sewing project ever, so I'm learning. So I'm about to make some pockets. I don't know how this is gonna go with this material because it was pretty easy with the other. Ugh. I think it's just gonna be a lot of pins, which is cool. I can do that. It's gonna be an interesting ride. I don't know how the heck I'm gonna do. And it was a very interesting ride indeed, as you will see in this clip. I also learned how to not film this the next time I make one of these videos. Apologies, you can't really see what I'm doing here. Alrighty, so the first official step in this process is to pin the patch pockets that I just made onto the front parts of the bodice, and then sew them on, as you'll see here. And one thing I actually did do was change the position of the pockets once I decided that I wanted them to be a little bit higher. So that is something that I did later on in the process. In this clip, you'll actually see me pinning the two right sides of the garment together to begin the coat. You can also see, if you are eagle-eyed, my little sister coming home in the background. At this point, you will see me pinning together the two parts of the inner collar that will go on the jacket. I then also importantly stitched them on the outsides to make sure that I prevented fraying in the future. I could have also used my pinking shears for this, but that is something that I thought later on in the process. I was not totally sure if I wanted to include this, but I figured it was part of the process and the learning curve, so I decided to leave it in. But I actually had sized up from my 810 preliminary pattern to a 1214 to make sure it would be big enough, and it was just way too big. So here is me cutting down that pattern back to the 810 size. And here is me just resewing literally everything I sewed the day before because I needed to take it all apart in order to cut the size down. And I'm leaving this in just so if you're also a beginner, you know that this was a learning curve and a learning process for me, and it shouldn't discourage you. So what I didn't show here was me clouding my lungs with the filling of the quilt, because after I had decided to cut the pieces for the collar, I decided it was just going to be way too bulky if I had two full sides of the quilt. So I undid all the stitching with my seam ripper on the one side just to get rid of that extra fill so that the collar laid nicely once I sewed it. At this point, I flipped the finished collar inside out just to make sure everything is sewn, as I have a tendency to accidentally miss a couple spots, but fortunately I did not. And you can see here I am actually cutting the excess fabric outside my stitching just so that the collar lays nicely and there's no extra bulk. This is one of the spots that I showed you how I pressed it, just because I really wanted to make sure that the collar was going to be pointed and have those sharp lines like it was meant to be. So I made sure to press it all out and make sure it all lined up. Alrighty, so at this point we are nearing the finish line. I actually totally screwed this step up and I deleted all that video just because I had to redo everything and it took probably an extra 45 minutes. But that's the process. But at this point, you're finishing the inner and outer collar by pinning them to the garment. So the important thing here, and the biggest tip that I learned, is to match up the notches and put pins in all 3 notch spots. So at the upper collar and then on either side, and then kind of go out from there. And make sure that the collar all lines up, and also make sure that your inner collar and your outer collar are actually getting stitched through the fabric. That was something that I messed up on my little prototype coat. So that is the biggest tip that I have for making your collar stay. Here, I just went in to sew everything together and make sure that all my collars are on the actual bodice of the fabric. As I mentioned, I had screwed it up before, so I was very happy at this point to see that everything was actually attached as it was meant to be. At this point, I am again just cutting out the extra fabric that I had on the outside of my stitch just to reduce bulk. I then went ahead and pressed all of those seams that I just did down, and here is the next step. This is more of a finishing step that the website recommends. I just went ahead and sewed all of the inner collar to the coat just so that it has a nice finishing seam, but also so that it stays in place. It is time for the sleeves, and then once the sleeves are in, pretty much everything just comes together really nicely. So here I am attaching the right sides of the fabric for the sleeve and the bodice together and then pinning them in place. Another spot that I learned is really important to match up your notches is here, obviously. So I matched up the top notch and then the 2 side notches, and then from there I kind of just gathered the fabric along the edges kind of evenly, and I put pins on either side and I alternated. Okay, so I realized I'm kind of the worst and totally forgot to take a video of me sewing in the sleeves. But it was honestly way easier on this one than it was on my first sewing project. I think it's because of the fabric, but it was super easy, and now I am just pinning all the sides together to sew up the whole garment. And here I am, super excitedly finishing up, stitching everything together to make it an actual coat. so ignore my messy room behind me, but this is where we're at right now. I just have to finish the sleeves and the bottom hem, and then press it and I'm done. And this is the final product. I hope you guys are as impressed as I am. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely did not think it was gonna turn out this incredible. I am just super proud of this project and I'm so glad I decided to do it. So this is it. This is my finished quilt coat. As you can see, I'm obsessed with it. I mean, it is just like the most beautiful thing. The pattern lined up so well, and I'm gonna be completely honest, it was a total accident. Literally the only thing that I actually like planned were the pockets. That's the only thing that I like specifically cut out. But yeah, so this is the finished product. You can see the collar and the inner collar. The inside you can kind of see a little bit better here. I mean, it's still like a little raw. This is where I would have liked to have used the pinking shears just so that it wouldn't do that like fray thing, but I'm not honestly all that worried about it. I figure once I wash it, it'll kind of just do what it wants to do, and that's just kind of how it's gonna be. But yeah, so that is that. Here's the back, and that's my coat. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this process as much as I really enjoyed going through it. Honestly, it was a whole new learning curve, whole new learning experience for me that I am really glad I took and did. It's just something that I really like never would have thought it would have turned out this good. So if you're a new sewer, just go for it. Just do it. Just go for it. Honestly, I promise, even if you screw up, you can fix your mistakes. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like this video, ring the subscribe bell, click the subscribe button, and then leave me a little love note in the comments below. Tell me what you want to see next. Tell me if you like the way this turned out. I also am thinking I might want to add buttons to it. The original Paloa design, which is the pattern that I used, had buttons going down. I do think it'd be really cute to have buttons, but I'm not totally sure. So if you want to leave a comment below letting me know if you think I should add buttons or not. I ordered a bunch of vintage buttons from Etsy, so we'll see if I like any of those when they come. But yeah, let me know if you want to see buttons. Let me know if you're ready for my next Abby Makes video, and I just appreciate you taking the time out of your day today to watch this video. Thanks.